Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, we're going to be breaking down the Week 7 NFL main slate on Draftkings. We're going to go position by position, quarterback through tight end. We're going to touch on some of my favorite plays at each position. Going to try and make this video somewhat short. Just kind of give you guys a few of my favorite plays at quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end. Talk about some stacking options as well. I'm not going to make this video too long, just going to try and hit on a few guys I like at each price range. So, at the top and then in the mid range, and then if there's any value at each position that I like, I will touch on that as well. But before we do get started with the breakdown, as always, guys, I would appreciate it if you would click that like button down below, click that subscribe button as well, and comment down below and let me know some of your favorite plays for this Week 7 main slate. Who are some guys that you're targeting? I'm always reading the comments, guys. I always do appreciate all your feedback and everyone that comments. So comment down below. Let me know some of your favorite plays for this week's slate. And I do want to give a shout out to PrizePicks as well. PrizePicks is the sponsor of this video. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, if you do want to check out PrizePicks, if you sign up with my promo code, they will give you a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. PrizePicks is very simple. It's more of a player prop based site. You just pick the over or the under on their projections that they have for each player. They have player props, so they basically have passing yards for quarterbacks. They have rushing yards for running backs. For wide receivers, they have receiving yards. You can take a look at all their projections they have for this Week 7 slate. They also have fantasy point projections too, so you can take the over or the under on players' fantasy point projections. You can win up to 10x your money on PrizePicks. Very simple format, very easy to use. I do recommend you guys checking out PrizePicks. I know a lot of you already have signed up for PrizePicks and have been doing really well over there. If you do want to check them out, make sure you use promo code Noah. You will get your first deposit matched up to $100. But yeah, guys, let's go ahead and start off. Take a look at this Week 7 slate and start off at the quarterback position. So for quarterback, for me this week, I think if I'm paying up, Patrick Mahomes is probably my favorite option. Great matchup here against Tennessee. Great game environment. This game by far has the highest total on the slate. 57.5 total between the Chiefs and the Titans. Next highest total is the Lions and the Rams with a 50 total. So we're expecting, or at least Vegas is expecting, a lot of points scored in this Chiefs-Titans game. Mahomes is expensive at 8,400, but he's my favorite option to pay up for. You guys know who you can stack him with. If you're going to play Mahomes in tournaments, you can stack him with Tyreek Hill. You can stack him with McCole Hardman. You can stack him with Travis Kelce. You can do double stacks with two of those three guys. Mahomes, in my opinion, is one of the highest upside quarterbacks in fantasy overall. And I know so far this year, maybe he hasn't had the best season overall, and the Chiefs as a team haven't looked that great compared to previous years. But we still know Patrick Mahomes can throw for 400 yards, 4 or 5 touchdowns any week in a great game environment, high total game. He's my favorite pay-up option. Kyler Murray, I'm a big fan of too. I've been pretty high on Kyler Murray basically every single week. Only issue I have with Murray this week is, at home against Houston, this is a spot where the Cardinals could just absolutely beat the crap out of Houston. Right now, they're the biggest favorites on the board. The Cardinals are 17.5 point home favorites. They still do have a 32.5 implied team total. They're still going to score a lot of points most likely, but I do worry about, Kyler not maybe having to put his foot on the gas, late in this game. I think if they're up big in the second half, which is probably likely, we might see Arizona running the ball a lot. We might even see Kyler come out of the game late, depending on if it's a blowout or not. I think you're going to need him to, so let's say Arizona scores 35 points this week. I think you're going to need Kyler to, throw all those touchdowns. I just don't see Houston keeping up with this Arizona team. I think this game's going to be over pretty quick, whereas the Tennessee game is a close spread. It's projected to be high scoring. So that's why I do give the edge to Mahomes, but when it comes to Mahomes and Murray in terms of projection this week, they're projected very similarly. 27.6 point projection for Mahomes, 25.8 for Kyler Murray. Mahomes is projecting better. I still do prefer Mahomes, but Kyler is playable too. I think if I'm paying up, those are my two favorite guys. Now in the mid-range, Matthew Stafford against the Lions, I have some interest in. Revenge game for Matthew Stafford. I think Darrell Henderson will get some ownership this week, so a good way to gain leverage on Darrell Henderson is just to play Matthew Stafford, stack him up with his pass catchers. You could always do that in tournaments. Jalen Hurts is 6,900 against the Raiders. Jalen Hurts, anytime he's priced below 7K, is going to be someone I have interest in. Gives you that rushing upside, dual threat upside. He's been so good for fantasy, given such a high floor. Basically 20 DraftKings points in every single game this season. What's not to like about Hurts at this point? The only issue I have with Hurts is that it's tough to find guys to stack him with. At least, it's tough to find guys that you feel confident stacking him with. Like Devontae Smith has been up and down this year. Dallas Goedert has been up and down. Same with Jalen Reagor. It's tough to find stacking options for Hurts, but still gives you upside. He gives you that dual threat ability, gives you rushing potential. So a 6,900, I do like Jalen Hurts in the mid range as well. And then for value, I think the value guy I'm looking at is Matt Ryan. And as gross as it sounds, 2021 playing Matt Ryan in DFS, but I mean Matt Ryan's been solid these last few weeks. He's throwing the ball a lot too, which is something I think we kind of expected this year. This Falcons team has always been pretty pass heavy, and so far this season, Matt Ryan's thrown the ball at least 35 times in every single game. He's got multiple games with over 40 pass attempts. The pass volume is going to be there. It's just a matter of if he can be efficient or not, if he can get into the end zone, if he can throw a few touchdowns. And so far, the last few weeks, he's been able to do that. 4 touchdowns against Washington, 2 touchdowns last week against the Jets, threw for over 300 yards. I like some of his stacking options. You can stack him up with Calvin Ridley. You can stack him up with Kyle Pitts. Only 5,700. If I'm paying down at quarterback this week, I think Matt Ryan might be my favorite value at this position. He's not projecting for too much ownership, only 5% projected ownership on DK. So someone I think you can definitely use in tournaments and maybe even cash games if you needed to go cheap at quarterback. But yeah, that does it for quarterback. Just a few guys I'm kind of looking at this week. Let's go ahead and move on to running back now. So at running back, Derrick Henry, most expensive option, 9,200, but damn, it is a good spot for Derrick Henry this week. He's going to be someone that if you fade him, it is a really, really scary fade. I mean, Kansas City this year against the run has just been terrible. So far this year in terms of rushing yards allowed to opposing running backs, KC, let's see where they are. I'm pretty sure they're like top 10 or at least middle of the pack. They've allowed 518 rushing yards to opposing running backs. Touchdowns allowed to running backs, they're about middle of the pack there as well. But this KC defense, they just haven't been great this season. They've been giving up a lot of points. They haven't really been able to stop the run or the pass. Derrick Henry has seemingly been just unstoppable this season. Basically since week 1, basically after week 1, he's run for over 100 yards in every single game. He's got multiple games with 3 rushing touchdowns. Like Derrick Henry just has that slate breaking upside now. He's going to be chalky. I do expect him to be very popular, even though he is expensive. He's still projecting for, he's still projecting for a decent amount of ownership, but it's hard not to like Henry this week. Seems really likely that he runs for over 100 yards. It's just a matter of if he can get into the end zone a couple times. If he can, you could see another 30-plus point game from Derrick Henry. I'm probably going to have a good amount of exposure to Henry. I think he fits really well in your Patrick Mahomes stacks. The only issue, if you're stacking up the Chiefs and you want to run it back with Henry, it's just really, really expensive, man. If you're stacking up like Mahomes and Kelsey and Hill, and then running it back with Henry, like you're going to be really, really thin on salary. And so far, looking at this slate Thursday night, there is not much value this week. So that's the only issue. Henry's just really expensive, but I still think he's a top play. And if you can fit him in, he's still projecting out as a really good play, points per dollar wise. But some other running backs I do have interest in. Darrell Henderson, great spot for him at home against the Lions. I mean, the Lions have never been able to stop the run. Henderson's been getting massive volume this year, getting a ton of carries, getting pass game usage as well. He seemingly is getting all the goal line work too. So whenever the Rams get near the goal line, like Henderson's going to be the guy punching it in. At 6,600, I think he's a really strong mid-range option. I think if you can't pay up all the way for Derrick Henry, Darrell Henderson makes for a good play to drop down to in the mid-range. He's projecting out as a really good value, points per dollar wise. One of the top overall values at the running back position using the projections that I use personally. But some other running backs we could go to in the mid-range. You got some other workhorses that, in the 6K range you could go to, like Joe Mixon, Leonard Fournette. These guys are going to likely get 20-plus touches. Matchup's not as good for them as it is for Henderson, but I think Mixon and Fournette make some sense. While Christian McCaffrey remains out, Chuba Hubbard should continue to be close to a workhorse back. 29 touches against Philly. Last week against Minnesota, he got 17 touches. He's been playing on 65, 70% of the snaps basically every week that McCaffrey has been out. Last week, Chuba Hubbard played on 65% of the snaps, 65% the week before that. So I think he's a fine option at 6,100 if you want to go to him. And then down in this 5K range, Darrell Williams at 5,800. We saw last week with Clyde Edwards-Helaire out, Darrell Williams was kind of the feature back, the number 1 running back for Kansas City, and he got a good amount of volume, 24 touches, did have a big game, 23 DK points, got into the end zone twice, which is something we can't predict. We can't expect that to happen again, I guess. I mean, he could score 2 touchdowns, but that's not something you expect to happen every week. But he was very heavily involved, got the touches. Pretty sure he played on a lot of the snaps as well. Darrell Williams played on 72% of the snaps last week for Darrell Williams. So at 5,800 and a high total game, pretty good matchup against Kansas City. Even the price went up a little bit. I still think Darrell Williams is a solid option in the 5K range. While Saquon Barkley is out, assuming Saquon's out again, we're going to have to keep an eye on his status. He did not practice on Thursday. Again, guys, I'm recording this video Thursday night, so these are kind of like early look. I'm going to post this video to YouTube on Saturday, but I'm recording it Thursday night. We'll have to keep an eye on Saquon's status, but if he's out again, Devontae Booker, even though it's a tough matchup against Carolina, like he just got all the work last week. Only got 16 touches, which was a little bit less than expected, but he did play on a very large majority of the snaps. He played on 72% of the snaps last week. He's going to be close to a workhorse running back. He's going to get probably all the goal line work. I think we can expect 12 to 15 carries. We can expect some pass game usage as well. Again, the matchup against Carolina is not ideal, but volume alone, I think, makes Devontae Booker a solid play in the 5K range, assuming that Saquon Barkley does remain out again. And then the last guy I want to mention is Khalil Herbert, 5,200. With David Montgomery on IR, with Damian Williams on the COVID list, we did see Khalil Herbert be the feature back for the Bears last week, and he was heavily involved. Played 89% of the snaps, got 21 total touches. He is going to be a workhorse running back while Montgomery and Williams are out. I'm pretty sure Williams, we don't have any confirmation yet that he's going to be back from COVID. I'm pretty sure he's still on the COVID list. Let's see. Yeah, he's unvaccinated, meaning he won't be able to clear the NFL's COVID protocols until Saturday at the earliest. So I guess we'll have to keep an eye on this, but it seems likely that Damian Williams is not going to play again come Sunday. And if that's the case, Khalil Herbert, even in a really tough matchup against Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay's been a pretty good run defense just the last few years. They've been a good run defense once again this season. I still think, volume alone is going to make Khalil Herbert a solid option at 5,200, and the value this week is hard to find. Like I said earlier, there's not much value, so if we can get a running back at 5,200 projected to see probably 20 touches, even in a tough matchup, I'm just going to bank on the volume and, I do have some interest in Khalil Herbert in this 5K range at running back. But that's kind of, just my kind of quick thoughts on the running back position. Just a couple of guys I'm interested in. I gave about 5 or 6. Those are my main kind of core guys I feel like I'm going to have the most exposure to at running back. So we can go ahead and move on to wide receiver now. So when it comes to the wide receiver position, like at the top of this position, I tend to just kind of focus on whatever quarterback I'm playing. So for example, any lineups, tournament lineups, I would say that have like Aaron Rodgers, those are going to have Devontae Adams. Any tournament lineups I make with Patrick Mahomes, those are probably going to have Tyreek Hill in them. When it comes to the top of the position, it really depends on what quarterback you're playing, because you can't really go wrong with any of these receivers, but you want to be correlating your lineup, especially in tournaments. You want to be stacking your quarterback with their receivers. But if I just had to pick one of these guys as my favorite, I think Tyreek Hill is going to be the guy I have the most interest in and likely have the most exposure to out of all these expensive receivers. And mainly that's due to just the fact that I expect Patrick Mahomes to be one of my higher owned quarterbacks. And if I'm going to be playing a lot of Mahomes, I'm probably going to have a lot of exposure to Tyreek Hill as well. Tyreek Hill, we know, has slate breaking upside. We know he's going to get a ton of volume. It's a great matchup against KC. It's a great game environment. It should be a high scoring game. What's not to like about Tyreek Hill? I mean, Tyreek Hill is basically in play every single week, and especially this week in what is a good matchup. Now, again, we'll have to keep an eye on his status. He's another guy that's questionable. I mean, there's a ton of guys questionable at this point in the season, but I'm assuming he'll play come Sunday. If he does, he's probably my favorite pay-up receiver overall. But really, you can't go wrong with any of these guys, whether you want, Devontae Adams, Tyreek Hill, Kupp, Hopkins, DJ Moore, Terry McLaurin. Like, you can't go wrong with any of these guys. Hill and Adams, though, are probably my 2 favorites overall up top. Now, looking down a little bit, Calvin Ridley, especially since, we talked about Matt Ryan and how I do have some interest in Matt Ryan as a value quarterback. I definitely like Calvin Ridley at 6,600. This is a very, very cheap price for Calvin Ridley. I don't know the last time he was ever below like 7K. Ridley hasn't had a great season so far. He's definitely underperformed to what we expected from him, but he's still getting the volume. He's still getting the opportunity. I mean, double-digit targets in 3 of the 4 games he's played in, at least 8 targets in every single game this year. Good matchup against Miami. Miami secondary is not one that I'm really going to fear. So I definitely like Calvin Ridley, especially, in my Matt Ryan lineups. I'm going to make sure to get some Calvin Ridley exposure in those lineups. And, Matt Ryan, any tournament lineups I make with Matt Ryan will probably have Calvin Ridley in them, if not, him or a guy like Kyle Pitts. But some other receivers we could target like in the 6K range. Matthew Stafford, if you want to stack him up to be a little different, get away from like Darrell Henderson chalk. I think Robert Woods is a good, tournament option you could stack with Matthew Stafford. If you want to stack up Tannehill, just try and get some exposure to that high scoring game against KC. You got AJ Brown and Julio. Now, again, both these 2 guys are questionable. I assume they play. If I had to choose one of AJ Brown or Julio, I think I'd prefer A.J. Brown. He just seems to be healthier right now. Julio, I don't know what's up with Julio, but the man just can't seem to stay healthy. So I probably would lean A.J. Brown there, but you could go to those two guys in tournaments in your Ryan Tannehill lineups. Brandon Cooks is projecting well, and I think that's just because of the volume he gets on a weekly basis. Matchup is pretty good against Arizona. He's 6K, pretty cheap for a guy that's getting the amount of volume that he's getting. He's got double-digit targets in 3 of 5 games this year. Houston, is going to be trailing almost every single week, and especially this week as massive dogs on the road. I mean, you expect them just to be forced to throw a ton. I mean, if they want to even keep track with Arizona in this game, they're going to have to put up points, and the only way they're going to do that is by throwing the football most likely. So we probably do see double-digit targets again for Brandon Cooks. I don't know if I'm going to use him a ton in tournaments unless it's like in Kyler Murray stacks as a run back option. I think for cash games, I mean, he's projecting really well for his salary. He could be someone worth considering for cash games. He's projecting out as one of the better values overall at the wide receiver position, points per dollar wise. So I do have some interest in Brandon Cooks, especially just for the volume he's getting. Some other wide receivers, though, that we could look to. We will need to keep an eye on Antonio Brown's status. Antonio Brown, he did not practice on Thursday, so we'll have to keep an eye on his status. If he gets ruled out, that would be a pretty good boost for Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. And Chris Godwin, way down here at only 5,900. Definitely have some interest in Chris Godwin in tournaments at this price point. Could even be cash game playable if we do get news that Antonio Brown gets ruled out. So I did want to mention him in the 5K range. Hollywood Brown, I played last week and he burned me, but I'm fine going back to him this week in another good matchup against the Bengals. I do have some interest in Hollywood Brown. Some other 5K receivers, we talked about Jalen Hurts, how I do like him at quarterback, how he's one of my preferred options in the mid-range. If you want to play Jalen Hurts in tournaments and you want to stack him up with somebody, I think Devontae Smith would be the first guy I would look to. I think Devontae Smith gives you the most upside from that Eagles offense. He's my preferred option to stack with Jalen Hurts. Jacoby Myers, a guy that's just getting a ton of volume as well and can't seem to score a touchdown. This dude literally hasn't scored a touchdown all year, and I don't think he's scored a touchdown since he's been in the NFL. And it's absurd because he does get a ton of volume, he gets a ton of opportunity, and he just can't seem to get into the end zone. At some point, Jacoby Myers is going to catch a touchdown. At some point, he's going to put up, a big ceiling game. When you're getting the amount of volume he is, it's only a matter of time before, a big game comes at some point. I mean, he's definitely someone you want to buy low on, especially while his price is as cheap as it is, $5,300 against the Jets. This is not a great game to target. It's a very low total game. It doesn't, you don't expect to see a ton of points scored here between the Jets and Patriots. But Jacoby Myers getting good volume every week, only $5,300. He's another one of these guys that I think for volume just projects really well for his salary. Could be someone you consider in cash games, just maybe as a one-off. I expect, any lineups that have Jacoby Myers in them, I doubt they're going to be used in stacks. I don't think I'm going to be stacking up the Jets and Patriots game. I think I will be playing Myers mostly just as a one-off this week. But some other wide receivers looking for value at this position. Again, value is really tough this week. T. Higgins is projecting decently well, 4,900 for him. Not a great matchup against Baltimore, but you're just kind of banking on the talent of T. Higgins. He's going to get the opportunity. 6 targets last week. He's going to play on a large majority of the snaps. That is a pretty cheap price tag for a talented receiver like T. Higgins. Robbie Anderson, at some point, I think is going to break out. He got a ton of opportunity last week, 11 targets, only had 3 catches for 11 yards. He did get into the end zone, luckily. It's only a matter of time before Robbie Anderson puts up a big game. He's a super talented receiver. He gets targeted deep down the field. He gets good volume every week. It's only a matter of time before he puts up, one of these 100-yard, 2-touchdown games, and it could come any moment. At 4,800, I definitely like going to Robbie Anderson at tournaments. He's been relatively low owned these last few weeks. I think he'll be pretty low owned once again. He's projected for only 5% ownership right now. I don't know how much I'm going to be playing Sam Darnold this week. I don't think I'm going to have a ton of Sam Darnold exposure. But I do want to get some Robbie Anderson exposure for sure because this is another guy I think we want to buy low on. The eruption's coming at some point. It's only a matter of time before Robbie Anderson, connects on these long touchdowns and puts up a 25, 30 DK point game like we know he can do. So I do like Robbie Anderson as a tournament value at receiver. But that's probably it. Mecole Hardman, last guy I want to mention, 4,300. Again, just getting exposure to that KC-Tennessee game. High total game. Should be high scoring. Hardman, 4,300. Hardman's going to be like a wild card. He's not a guy you're really going to know what you're going to get from on a weekly basis, but he's playing in a great offense. He's playing with a great quarterback. There's always opportunity for Mecole Hardman to put up a big game any week. He's going to be very unpredictable, but for tournaments, I do like getting exposure to McCall Hardman. I will include him in my Patrick Mahomes stacks. Him and Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce as well. But that's probably it for wide receiver. I don't see too much else that stands out down here. There's really nobody that's projecting that well down here. Last guy, I guess, Rashad Bateman is projecting decent. He's super cheap, 3,400. He made his debut last week with Baltimore. Was targeted 6 times. I do want to look at his snap count. I don't think he played a ton of snaps. I do believe he was limited a little bit. He did play, so he did play 65% of the snaps. So he did get 65% of the snaps for Bateman last week. He probably plays similar snaps this week, if not a little bit more. I thought he was going to be a little bit more limited last week, but he wasn't. So 3,400 against Cincinnati. Rashad Bateman, first round rookie that the Ravens drafted. He's someone I think they have a lot of, high hopes for. I think he will be involved in this Ravens offense on a weekly basis. I think he'll kind of be the number 3 guy behind Mark Andrews and Marquise Brown. For 3,400, I think he's a pretty decent value if you are trying to go cheap at wide receiver. If you really need to punt the position, he's probably the best option, like below 4K. And he definitely, looking at the projections, he's the best option, projection-wise, this cheap. So that's kind of my thoughts at wide receiver. We'll close out tight end real quick, guys, before we do end the video. So at the tight end position, I say this every single week. If you can pay up Travis Kelce, anytime Travis Kelce is on the main slate, he's going to be my favorite tight end. And especially this week in a good matchup against Tennessee and what should be a high-scoring game, I think Travis Kelce is the guy I like most here. And, he's projecting out as the highest projected tight end overall, kind of as you would expect. With some other guys you could look to, Kyle Pitts, I think, will be pretty low owned. He's only projected for 1% ownership right now. His prices come all the way up to $5,900. He doesn't really project that well at that price point. Mark Andrews projects better. Darren Waller projects better. Even like some cheaper guys that project better points per dollar wise. I think Pitts will come in at low ownership, but we still know Kyle Pitts has upside. He kind of showed it last week. I know Calvin Ridley was out last week, and that definitely helped Kyle Pitts, but it was only a matter of time before Kyle Pitts had a good game. He's super talented. He's getting all the opportunity. He's basically an every down tight end. He's getting good volume. I'm going to include him in my tournament lineup, stacking him with Matt Ryan. Him and Calvin Ridley, I like stacking with Ryan. And I guess if you wanted to, you could do a double stack Ryan with Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley if you wanted to go that route. But some other tight ends for cheaper, Mike Gesicki for $4,700, continuing to get consistently good volume. 6 targets, 12 targets, 6 targets, 7 targets, 9 targets. Like he's getting at least like 6 to 8 targets every single week. It's a good matchup against Atlanta. He's only $4,700. He's probably the best like cheap play at tight end. There's not a ton of guys that are projecting that well for cheap. The only other guy that's projecting decently for cheap is Ricky Seals-Jones. I did play Ricky Seals-Jones last week in my main lineup. He was only $3K then. His prices come up to $3,700 this week, but he's another guy that's just getting a lot of opportunity. He's playing on basically every single snap. He's been an every down tight end ever since Logan Thomas got injured. Got 6 targets last week, got 9 targets the week before that. Only $3,700. He's another value tight end I do have some interest in, but those are kind of my quick thoughts on the tight end position. Mainly Travis Kelce, Kyle Pitts, Mike Gesicki, Ricky Seals-Jones are probably my favorite place here. Looking for guys like with super low ownership. I mean, we already talked about Kyle Pitts, who's going to be really low owned. Like even Travis Kelce is projecting for less than 10% ownership. Right now, the highest owned tight end, at least the projected highest owned tight end, is Dallas Goedert. I probably would rather just play Mike Gesicki over Goddard, honestly. But I think Goddard's fine too. But those are just my quick thoughts on tight end, guys. And that's just kind of my quick thoughts for this Week 7 main slate. I did want to get this video out for you guys. I am going to be traveling this weekend. I'm going to be going up to Atlanta for the Braves game on Saturday. So I wanted to get my content out early. I'm recording this video Thursday night. But I still did want to get this video posted. Going to post it on YouTube Saturday morning. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully it helped you. If you did enjoy, guys, as always, please do click that like button down below. Click that subscribe button as well. Also, comment down below and let me know some of your favorite plays for this week's slate. I'll be reading the comment section. I'll try and reply to every single comment like I always do. I appreciate everyone who does comment and anyone that leaves feedback as well. I appreciate that too. But best of luck this week, guys. Appreciate you watching the video. I hope you enjoyed, and we will see you in the next one. Good luck, guys. Peace.